Hey guys, Sherman here, back with another deck profile, this time for Blue Archive, the long-awaited deck profile for this set. Now, this is going to sound like an excuse, but I will explain myself. I think deck profiles are not something to be done willy-nilly. I talked about this on my Twitter where I asked the question, what do people think about day one deck lists? Like, do people think those have any value? Like, if you haven't tested the deck, if you haven't spent enough time with the deck, do you think your opinions on the deck, my opinions at least, on the deck, are they worth it? Well, and of course, some players are like, yeah, sure, we want some place to start from. But I think my journey with this deck, in particular for Blue Archive, is the reason why I like to take a long time for my deck profiles, why I really value a lot of testing, because without testing, your ideas and your opinions, they could just be wrong, or there's just not enough time spent to flesh them out, because every deck is really different. Like, you can know all the Weiss theory or all the math or whatever, but until you see things in practice, you're just not going to have the right context to apply all your knowledge. And I think this was just a perfect example. And so I'll try to do the deck profile a little quicker because I just want to talk about my process and how I got here and how this experience has really, for me, kind of like, it really reaffirms my sentiment that like I need to test first before I make videos like this, because I want my content to be backed not just by theory, right? What's like going on in my head, but by actual kind of results and by experiences, right? Because like a lot of these things are just like theory alone is just not good enough. That's just my opinion. All right, but so this is going to be standby choice Blue Archive. This is my preferred build for Blue Archive. I know the popular one is like Pants choice with the Hifumi, and I actually haven't tested that enough. I do need to play that a little bit more. I didn't get my Mika playset until really late, so I couldn't really play that deck a lot. I think the deck is strong, seems fine, kind of boring for my taste. So I might put some effort into testing that, but I also don't think that deck needs a lot more testing because like it's really straightforward. I don't think there's anything like too crazy that you could play. I think people aren't playing Resa, which is probably like the one card that I think should be in every list. But apart from that, it's like about it. But this deck was a challenge. I think getting standby to work was definitely something that I realized was gonna be hard, which is why I wanted to do it, because it sounded like it would be a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm very happy to have gone to the place where I feel like I did get it to work. So let's talk about the deck starting from the level 0 lineup. So let's do the easy part first. First, 4 copies of Mashiro. This is definitely a 4 of. Definitely if you're playing Aru. I think every Aru deck basically plays this card at 4. This card just broken, right? It's JC and Krush. So on attack, you choose your trigger from the top 2 cards of your deck. You can look at 1 and stop there if you want, or you can look at 2. And then whenever one of your other characters gets front attacked, you can pay 1, send this from stage to way room to bounce that character to your hand. So it's a +1 at level 0 for 1 stock, and it helps you trigger your standbys in mid game. This card's just broken. This card's so good. We play it at 4. This card's just crazy. I think any deck that's not playing this at 4 and the Aru deck is just like you're trolling yourself, dude. This is basically Climax combo without the Climax. That's really good. And then 4 copies of Mimori, the Riki. So this is a salvage Riki, pay 1, top check 3, choose one of those to put your clock, and then you can salvage anything you want. And then it also, when the damage you take during this card's battle is cancelled, you can send it to your stock. So it's just really all around good advantage engine. These are kind of our advantage cards at level 0. Gets up off the ground, and so we definitely just want to see them at 4 copies each. Yeah, we do want to get our advantage from level 0 because we're not going to get it from level 1 as often, because this deck doesn't really run a traditional level 1 combo the way that other decks would, just like slam 3 level 1 combos, and plus this deck's not really trying to do that. All right, for our 2 ofs at level 0, we're running 2 copies of the Rico and 2 copies of the Drop Search. This is on play on death, and it also has the on play top check 2. Choose any number to mill and then rearrange the rest. So the Mio Drop Search from Hololive is the Hanako Drop Search. I think 2/2 is pretty nice because these are the cards that we kind of want to see a little bit more often throughout the course of the game. We want a bit of redundancy. Honestly, could go up to 3 or 4 for this card. I think 2 for this one is fine, especially since I'm running the level 1 Rico effect as well, just for a little diversity. But I think, yeah, like 2 to 3 Rico effects, I think for this deck is really good. And then this Drop Search you can run more of, but I think 2 is fine. 2 is probably like the minimum I would run, because you always kind of want to see, you want to have this as an option. But I am running another Drop Search, so that's kind of why I went for 2. I think if you're running the other Drop Search, you can run this at 2. And then 2 brainstorms. This is the salvage brainstorm. It also taps to pump 2k if you have experience 2 or more, experience 3 or more. Okay, and so we run this one because we have a bunch of axe synergy in this deck, so being able to use an axe for free is always really good. And plus it's probably just the best brainstorm. You could run the red one, but like color doesn't really matter because you're leveling experience. So this is just probably the better one. It's gonna be more expensive for me to max rarity, but it's okay because it's feet. So I'm a big fan of that. And yeah, I mean, it's just good brainstorm. You don't always have a brainstorm party in the back row, which is why you only need 2. Pretty easy to grab it when you need it. All right, now for our 1-of. So I'm on a lot of 1-ofs at level 0. So I'm on 1-of clean cut. So I think you only need 1 because you have drop searches to drop search for it in the situations where it's good, and it's not always good. So definitely don't need more than 1. I think even the 1 you could cut this. I particularly like Miyako, and it's a +1 in the right situation, so I still keep it at 1. But you could cut this for like something else at 0. But basically just like a +ing 0. And then 1 copy of the Minori. This card is crazy. I think I heavily underestimated this card going into this set. I thought just like a Foolish Burial effect and Weiss wasn't going to be very strong, but it turns out it's still really strong, especially with standby. Being able to search out a standby target, put it into your waiting room, and then play a standby, get it out immediately on your first turn is actually really insane. It's pretty crazy how good that is, and especially with the standby lineup that I have in this deck now, it's even better. In 8 standby, you probably play 4 of this because this card is just that good in 8 standby, although I think 8 standby has other issues. But yeah, this card is really good. You could play more, but I think 1 is fine. You can always drop search for it or dig it out because it's like a level 0. You could play more though. I could definitely see this card go up to 2, 3, 4, even, yeah, all the way up to 4. I think is a good number. All right, 1 copy of the Mina drop search. So this is another drop search, which is why I think 2 drop search is fine. We have a 3rd one here, and this is also level swap. We are experience 5, and we don't really have a lot of time to get to experience 5, and also we need experience 5 by level 2. So I think it's just really good insurance to have the drop search. Otherwise, yeah, we're gonna get into game states where we actually can't use our level 2 combo, which would be pretty bad for this deck. All right, 1 climax swap, self-explanatory. The only one that Blue Archive has from at level 0 is from deck, and then which works for us because we want to put the Aru standby back in the deck. But then if the climax we want is in waiting room, it's kind of hard to get, which is a little bit annoying. The salvage from waiting room is a level 1. It's green, and we don't have green in this deck. So, all right, and then 1 copy of Mari. So Mari is really good. It has the startup synergy, so when you use an act, she gets +1 soul. And then on play, you can pay 1 to check Kivotos to top check 4 for any card. Helps us grab climaxes, very important in the early game because we want to see a standby at level 1, so we can bring out the 2/2 Haruka. Yeah, Mari's good. I think the deck definitely felt a lot better once I started testing with her. I think as a 1-of, she's excellent in the deck list. And then the last level 0 is the Izuna. So I actually haven't tested with this Izuna because I didn't get the SR until pretty late. But this used to be a Mutsuki, the bounce back. And just like in the late in testing, I just realized the bounce back was just very low value because if you're playing the choice, you don't have back row slots that you want to bounce back anyways. And then at level 1, you're just not always prioritizing the Mutsuki over other cards. Like, it's just so much more important to get other cards to your hand than the Mutsuki. Like, the Mutsuki is pretty low value. So this can be any other level 0. I think Izuna is going to test really well because a lot of my games, I have a lot of stock that I don't really need to use. And so Izuna can turn stock into a heal, which is pretty nice. Also, this deck really needs to keep climaxes in deck. So if you mill out all of your climaxes, you don't really do much. And then Izuna allows you to just reset your deck. So you can shuffle back all the the Aru climaxes. The kind of awkward thing with Izuna is that because she resets the waiting room as well, because you refresh, and you trigger standby off of the refresh deck, it's kind of bad. So you kind of have to play her with like if you can combo the Izuna with something like the Minori, you can get the refresh and then you can search out like the standby target, which is really nice. So I think I want to test her out. I think she's good, but I mean, she could be anything else. This is just like a flat 0 slot. It used to be Mutsuki, but I don't think Mutsuki's worth it anymore. So that's kind of what this is. All right, and then at level 1, so this is kind of where the testing really made a difference, because at level 1, we're playing 4 copies of the Cherry No combo. Now this combo is ass cheeks. This combo sucks. This combo is like so bad. Well, we're playing 2 copies of the standby. This combo is so bad. On paper, this combo is one of the worst, if not probably the worst standby combo at level 1 that Bushido has printed in like post-pandemic, potentially. Like this combo is so bad. It's like, it's a 1-1 6k with hand encore, and then the climax combo is just on attack. You have to be experience 1, and then you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a Kivota's character, you get to add to your hand, otherwise it stays there. So like, that's awful. Like it's a top trick combo on a 1-1 that doesn't get power. So I think like when they print this combo, at first everybody, including me, was like, this combo is bad, you would never play this combo sucks. And here we are, we're playing at 4. Why? Because this deck needs this combo. I tested 4 choice 4 standby with no level 1 combo, playing stuff like Shigure, playing like the what's her name, the Junko level 1, just playing like off, like just like 1175 beaters and stuff like that. It never worked. It always felt bad because you always play a standby at level 1 to get the 2/2 Haruka out, and the fact that you would just never be able to plus on top of that meant you were always behind on hand. You'd be behind on damage because you weren't triggering, and then your board was small if you're playing Shigure. But then, yeah, it's just like basically nothing worked at level 1. I just felt like I was always behind on the game at level 1, and then even at level 2, like my board wasn't able to like help me transition to my 2-1 plays. But the thing with Cherry No, which is so special about this card, is that in the context of this deck, because you're always standbying out a 2/2 Haruka, which is front 15, Cherry No will always be 7/5, which is decent, and she has hand encore. And then if you play the right climax with Cherry No, you get a +1, and like that extra +1 is like a night and day difference, right? It's just like you basically potentially get a free card, or you get a trigger of a climax, which is going to get you another standby out, which is basically a free card, or it's going to be a choice, which is a free card, right? So the fact that you get a free card every time you combo with Cherry No is like, that +1 is so big. And then because she has hand encore, even if she dies, you can just discard a card that you don't need in your hand, which happens a lot. You have like a lot of deck cards with Arus, especially. You need a way to get Aru out of your hand. You can just discard the Aru, and then she's back and she can trigger again. And at level 2, if you don't have the right climax, but you have this climax, she is technically an extra trigger towards a climax, which is probably going to be Aru climax, which just gives you an extra attack. So it's like, she's just better than like a 1175 hand encore in the context of this deck, and allows you to play more standby and not feel like you're losing out playing more standby. Because I realized you just need more standby in this deck. 4 choice was just too many choice. Like I saw choice way too much when it wasn't very good. So it turns out that Cherry No is actually just the perfect card for this deck specifically, and I would have never figured that out unless I played a bunch of games and lost a bunch of games trying other stuff. But yeah, it turns out Cherry No is just the way to go. You play 4 for consistency, but I don't think you ever play like more than 1 or 2 on the board. You only really need a 1 Cherry No. You just kind of flex around the single Cherry No point of power. If you can stand by 1 out at level 0, you can play another one at level 1, you can have like 2. It kind of feels like Eris a little bit, in which you almost never go triple Eris in Mushoku, or like you never want to, because like even if you go triple Eris, like on the following turn you're probably pushing up a 2/2 Ghislaine because you want the 2-soul beater instead of like the 1/1 Eris. At least that's how I play. So like it's kind of similar. You just kind of play around 1 or 2 on the board. You never go for triple, and then it's just like it just makes your level 1 game so much better. I think after I added her, like yeah, level 1 game felt way better. And we're playing 1 copy of the Fuka because we need more 1s. Obviously, as you can see, we're running a ton of 0s, and then our transition level 1's a little bit smudge. So the Fuka helps. It's just a better, or it's like a higher power version of the Kyoko, and it also can pump power. So yeah, very good card. Okay, and then we're playing 1 copy of the level 1 anti-change punch. This anti-changes to clock and costs 3 stock, which is no problem for this deck because we get stock for days. Honestly, really good. Anti-change, nobody expects it at level 1, so it's very strong. And also, it's like a free backup for our level 2, which we are playing 4 copies. This is the Sakurako combo. Unfortunately, don't have any SPs. We are going to get those eventually, and 2 copies of the choice. So I used to think that this combo was like super important for the deck. Like I used to think you had to get this combo off at level 2 or your deck's not doing anything. Kind of. Like you really want to get this off at level 2 so that your deck does get to do that explosive wombo combo turn. But a lot of the times you only want to go for this if it's like profitable. Like you're never trying to play over characters to go for Sakurako combo. And the thing with Sakurako is if you can defend Sakurako, you can go for back-to-back combo turns really easily because she's 5/5 base, but she gets 5k when you use this act ability, and then so a counter will easily put her in front of the Harukas, will easily put her at like 14, 15, even higher sometimes, right? And if you're that high, then like, because like the thing is, Sakurako is only 7k base in front of Haruka, so there's no point for your opponent to attack it with like a 14k attacker, unless like it just the card is like naturally big, right? Like you're not trying to like basically like if I have the counter, my counter is worth like 8k power or like I guess 7/5 power, and it's like never worth it to overshoot that power range, if you know what I'm saying, right? It's like you're either attacking this with like a 7k power thing or you're like crashing. Like you're never trying to hit this with like a 15k power thing. It's just not worth it, right? To pump a card that big to get over Sakurako. So Sakurako really lives a long time if you can counter and protect her well. And so with the 2 choice, you're using like your other utility cards to help you get to your choice, and then you can do like back-to-back choice turns pretty easily in this deck once you kind of figure out what to prioritize. So yeah, but Sakurako is your main win condition. So the climax combo is a Mocha. So on attack, check top 2 for your opponents, and then check top 2 for yourself. And the top 2 for yourself is obviously trying to stack the Problem 68 standby climax so you can standby out the Arus. Now, if you don't know how this deck works, I guess I'll explain once the Aru comes out. All right, we're playing 2 copies of Haruka. Only need 2. We often foolish this one at level 1. If we get the Minori at level 1, we don't have any of these in waiting room. Otherwise, we can just mill these out pretty easily. At level 1, we stand by one of them out, and then we can start using its climax combo effect, which is a act ability. You can rest her to search your deck for a climax and then swap it with a Problem 68 climax in your waiting room, which is a standby. And then you can also pump 1k afterwards. So really good to help us continue to reuse the Problem 68 standby throughout the course of the game. Because once we start triggering those at level 2, it's just pure gas for us. So it's very good. All right, and the remaining level 2 counters. So we're playing 1 Koharu counter, which is an anti-change for anti-change to the bottom of your opponent's stock, really weird, and they pay out the top of their stock, and then the cost is you ditch 2, and then Aru counter is +6 soul counter. So these are like the really good counters in Blue Archive. I play 1 of each, and yeah, it's just really nice. Like we use this to protect Sakurako, and we can also the utility effects are really good. Like the +6 counter makes it so that we can definitely survive a lot of situations where it would be a little difficult to survive. I realize I'm kind of out of space here, so I'm gonna try to finagle this. This mat is a little small, so it's gonna be hard to fit everything on the map. Okay, early play. So we're running 2 Hina early plays, the bane of my existence. You really need a level 3 red character for experience, because you want level 3 red plus level 2 yellow to make experience 5 for Sakurako. And you don't really want to level Aru a lot, so this is like the next best thing. She is a healer, only healer in the deck, so we run 2. So once we level 1, we still have access to a healer. Also has experience 4, which we will meet in this deck. Plus 1500 power, and when she reverses a battle opponent, you can pay 1, ditch 1 to burn 1. That does come up. It's a little bit of extra reach, so it's a good card. And then 1 early play Haruka. This is 2 or less climaxes early play, and then top check up to X. Helps us dig for climaxes. Really, really nice, especially once we refresh with something like Izuna. We can use this to help dig, get cards into our waiting room, look for the climax. It's a pretty nice card. Alright, and then 4 copies of the boss girl herself. This is Aru. Aru is broken. 4 copies of Problem Solver 68. So Aru Climax is just, or I guess Aru Climax combo is like easily, in my opinion, the best Climax combo in Blue Archive. It's just so good. And the problem with Aru Climax combo is that Blue Archive doesn't have a good decompression tool. And so even though you're getting a bunch of extra swings, it's like pretty low value. So the Aru Climax combo, so Aru is like, I think she gets plus 2k if you have two or more other Kibota's characters. And then the climax combo is when you trigger this climax, or when you stand by Aru out from the trigger effect of this climax. So whether you play it or whether you trigger it, you can pay 1, ditch 1 to stand the Aru. And that's really cheap. So the first time we got this effect in Weiss Schwarz, it was in Kimono Friends on Lion, and it's the same exact wording, except it was pay 2, ditch 2, which is ridiculously expensive. So the Aru is pay 1, ditch 1. She's 50% off. It's actually insane. And it's so cheap because she pays out the climax that you trigger, and then you just discard a card, which is effectively like you played Aru from your hand, and you just get an extra attack. So it's like, you can think of Aru as like pay 1, play a card from your hand. Like anytime you trigger standby, you can pay 1, play Aru from your hand, like effectively play the Aru and just get an extra attack. It's like, that's actually insane. Like that's such a cheap restand cost. And it's so cheap because like you don't need the Aru in hand, because Aru just comes out from the graveyard. You can ditch anything, so it's like even better. Yeah, Aru is crazy. So yeah, this gives you a lot of reach, and because it counts like a climax that you have in play, we get full benefits from something like a choice. So like when we play the choice with the Sakurako, the global soul counts for the like, so the new Aru that comes out will get +1 soul from that. So like, yeah, it's just insane. It's so good, so good. Aru is super strong, and especially alongside Sakurako, where we can use Sakurako's self Mocha effect to sculpt for the standbys on top to trigger, and then also decompress our opponent if they have climaxes on the top. We get rid of them, and then our Aru swings are more likely to hit. Alright, and then the last card we're playing is the Tsurugi. So this card actually, in future testing, this might get bumped up, because this card is really integral to the kind of like the 2-turn Mocha setup, where we go for 1 turn of Mocha, and then at level 3 we play Tsurugi to salvage the choice to Mocha again. So like, I think I need to test a bit more, but it's possible that the Haruka becomes a second Tsurugi. Like Tsurugi is really good for this deck because of that specific pattern, where like we protect the Mocha, or we like 3-stock the Sakurako, and then we can play Tsurugi because we have like a bajillion stock. So yeah, so on play, pay 1, salvage a climax, and then I think it's experience 4. She gets +1k power, and your opponent cannot use events or backups during this card's battle. So yeah, it's really good. Yeah, so this is the 50. Pretty good. This went undefeated last weekend at Saturday, so it went 5-0 on the night, which is really strong. And I think there is like something to be said about like making some changes and then like seeing the deck perform well. Because I wasn't playing 6 standby until the Saturday, and then definitely worked really well. So some cards I'm not playing that you can think about playing, but I've also cut from my deck list. So Shigure used to be like my level 1, but then the problem with Shigure is that she's a little too small. She's only 5k base, 6'5" in front of the Haruka, but it's not gonna live. And then the plus effect doesn't always come up, because you're not playing a Global Soul Climax in this deck at level 1, you're going to be behind on the damage rate. So the fact that she clocks yourself to take more, like you take more damage just to plus, like sometimes just push you like way too far behind. So it wasn't always that good, but she is good because she's costless. So if you like costless attackers, it's potential to put this back in. But like you have so much stock in this deck that it almost never like matters. If you don't want to play the Cherry Note, the 1/1 Junko was really strong in my testing. So she's 5'5" base. Experience 2 or more, she attacks for 9/5, and then in front of the Haruka she'll be attacking for 11, which basically just murders anything. So she was like really good because she just kills anything on sight. And then her encore effect is, it's like a pseudo encore, so if all your other characters are rested, or if you don't have any characters, then you can pay 1 to encore her. But good players will just like crash into a shitty character that you don't want to live, or like side something, and then kill this, and then you don't get this back, so it's like really smudge. So yeah, but I think she's good. She's like a really good one-of, because you can always bin it with like the Minori Foolish Burial. So if you don't want to play Cherry Note, I think you should play Cherry Note, but if you don't want to play Cherry Note, I would play like 1175 Kyoko, and then I'd play 1 Junko. I think Junko's pretty good though. I do miss not having her. Alright, this Serena, Christmas Serena, is really strong. So this is on play +15, on attack +15, really good in like power decks, which this deck is a bit like wants to get over stuff. If I were to cut something, I'd probably cut like the clean cut for this arena just to get more power at 0, because like our 0 lineup outside of like the clean cut specifically is like a little weak, so I'm not really killing things at 0 as easily as I want to be. I kind of don't care, but like I think there's an argument to be playing this instead of the clean cut, because you can always drop search this and then like actually wipe a board. This is also really good with this Mashio specifically, because you can pump the Mashio like really big, and then the Mashio can bounce this back to your hand, and then you can basically use both effects of this card again. So it's really strong. I think this is a really good 51st card that I would try to find room for if I felt like the extra power mattered. And then the last card that you could play is the Yuka Twin Drive. So generally speaking, Twin Drive is going to be worse than the Crush effect of the Mashio, because if you trigger standby on the first trigger on the Twin Drive, it's going to be really hard to pay it out later, right? And then it also, like, you basically have to make a decision not knowing what your second trigger is, whereas the Crush, you always know what you're triggering. Like, you can always make the decision at the right time. This also stocks a card from your hand, but we can do that from Izuna already. And also, we have way too much stock in this hand, in this deck, so we usually don't use that effect. But otherwise, like, a Twin Drive is still just as good, because yeah, the more times you can trigger standby, the better in this deck. So Yuka's definitely worth consideration if you have room. But yeah, I think I've tested this deck a lot, and the deck plays, it's really hard to play. This is probably one of the more difficult decks that I've built. So like, your game plan is going to be really different every single game. Like, some games you can play aggressively, some games you have to play slowly. If you're gonna try this, play this deck, I think a few hints I would give you. So first thing is, you always need a standby at level 1, because you're always going to standby out 2/2 Haruka on your level 1 turn. Getting this into your back row is very crucial to having a consistent rest of the game, because this is basically going to allow you to refresh problem 68 standbys for the rest of the game. It's like, that's a huge difference, right? Like, basically, like, if you have one climax left in deck and it's not problem 68, you can make a problem 68. And then if your deck is small, you can basically guarantee to trigger it and then get the Aru attack. So she effectively gives you 4 attacks like for free, which is really strong. So you definitely want to standby the Haruka out immediately. So we're trying to, we hold a standby climax at level 0 to be played at level 1 every single game. Never play a standby at 0 unless you have more than one. And then ideally you would combo it with the Cherry No to get an extra plus, but it's not important. Like, if I have this standby and no Cherry No, I would not try to sculpt for both Cherry No and Climax Swap to get this to right standby. Like, I would only go for the Cherry No line if I have Cherry No hand and this, and I need to play like 3 attackers. One of them can be a Climax Swap to get this. Like, that's the only time I would actually go for it. It's not that important. It's just nice when it happens. And when it does happen, like, you get rewarded. It's kind of the idea. Otherwise, you're basically trying to hit level 2 pretty quickly after that. Like, you can stall a little bit, but like, your deck turns online at level 2. So you kind of want to hit level 2 fast while pushing as much damage as possible. And then you just kind of win the game. So level 2 is where this deck kind of goes crazy, because you basically dump your entire hand and then just never look back. So you're trying to sculpt for like a counter and then some Sakurakos, and then you just go for the Sakura combo. Anytime you trigger standby, you bring out Aru, and then you just Aru attack. You try to do like 4 or 5 attacks at level 2. You try to blast them into level 3 while you're still low 2, and then if you have a counter, if like the last card in your hand's a counter, you probably can save your Sakurakos, and then on the following turn you can try to sculpt again to go for another Sakurako play, or you usually have enough stock at this point to like 3-stock something. So I would like try to 3-stock like a Sakurako if I have a way to get the climax, or I would just like 3-stock some other attacker if I don't have a hand, and then you just try to close out the game after like doing a big push at level 2. And if they cancel everything, it's fine, because they're probably not in a good position to either do damage or like fix their deck state. And then like, if they can't kill your board at the same time, then you can just do the same thing again, right? Like, Sakurako being very sticky is like really strong in this deck. So to the point where like, I actually consider maybe bumping the number of counters up, but it would be kind of hard to decide what to cut. Maybe like some zeros. I think that's something else you could test in this list. Yeah, like playing more counters so it's easier to grab these to protect the Sakurakos. But then I found out like 3-stocking Sakurako is not a big deal anyways. So I think a problem with this deck that people, when they play, they just don't know, kind of like, it's like a very all-in deck, but you can still play for contingencies. So like, if you attack with like, let's say you have a dream scenario, you're triple Sakurako, right? And then you attack, and then your Sakurako on your self Mocha reveals like something like this, right? Depending on your game state, like if I have a counter and I see this, I'm just gonna put it back like this, trigger this card, and then the other Mochas, we're just gonna move this cancel all the way down so that we get a guaranteed cancel at level 2. Because I know if I have a counter, they're not gonna be able to wipe my board, and so I can take the cancel, counter, keep my board, and then we can go again. We can like go for Tsurugi, Mari, this, try to get the climax again. Or even if we don't get the climax again, just be able to attack 3 more times at level 2 and get the Arus like out at level 2 is like super worth it. Because you have to remember, if you can win the lane with Sakurako, that's a direct lane. If you summon the Aru to the direct lane, that's a direct for 3 without a climax. Basically like you played a climax, right? So like if you don't see the climax at level 2, it's fine, because you're either going to cancel with it, or you can even set up the cancels with it, or like you're basically gonna be safe at level 2. And the more turns you have, the more attacks you have, the more likely those attacks will become standbys for like extra attacks to become your finishers. Like this deck just wants to attack like a bajillion times, right? And like it's like that one video I made, the how to actually play White Shards. It's like if you're dead, you can't attack. You're just trying to stay alive so that you can attack more times. That's basically it. This is really like fundamental. Just attack White Shards. Yeah. All right. That's pretty much it. So this deck is really fun. Oh, it's a very rambly video, but this deck's really fun. As you can see, I'm very invested in this deck. I will probably max it at some point. Just gotta get the rest of the cards. I think this deck is really hard to play and very rewarding when you do it right. You like set out, you're sometimes just like no hand, but you have like a level lead at level 2, and your opponent's like, oh, what do I do? It's like, it's really interesting. And the lines that you can come up with this deck are really, really creative. It's very skillful. Like whenever I do well with this deck, I always feel like I earned the victory. Like it really felt like I had to work for it. And it's just really fun. It's a very rewarding deck to pilot. So yeah, hopefully that gave you guys a good idea of how this deck works for Blue Archive. I would say this is probably the strongest Blue Archive deck, but it's not the most consistent one, and probably not something I would take to like a high level tournament, just because at a high level tournament I want a high consistency and easy to pilot deck. Not this. This is hard to pilot and not very high consistency, but it is very strong. I think it's on average, like over the course of like many games, I think this will outperform something like Pants Choice, but in like low sample size tournament runs, things can get very shaky with this deck. And I'm still learning it. I'm still getting better at it. So maybe once I get better at it, I will be better at playing this over like a smaller sample size with a lot more variance. So yeah, let me know in the comments below if you have any questions and what other decks you want to see from Blue Archive profiled. I do have most of the set. I can test a lot of this stuff, and I definitely can do some more Blue Archive deck profiles. I really do like this set. The set is very fun to play. It's not very strong, especially at the high end level, but there's a lot of really fun cards. I think Blue Archive is like where I think, if White Shards power level was settled around Blue Archive level, I think White Shards would be a lot more fun. The problem with White Shards right now is that some sets just have way too high of a like a top end. It's way too powerful. So I think Blue Archive is like a really nice power level. I hope this is what they keep sets at going forward into the future. So yeah, testing is really important. That's why my deck profiles will always feature a lot of testing, feature a lot of my personal experience with the deck. Because I want to bring you guys the most relevant kind of deck profiles, right? I don't want to be like theory crafting and pushing out stuff that I haven't really experienced myself. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to tell you that Cherry No Combo is actually good in this deck specifically because of the way this deck plays, right? I would I just thought Cherry No is bad, and Cherry No is bad. Like in any other deck, Cherry No would be pretty garbage, but in this deck specifically, she's the reason why it works. So yeah, that was a very fun experience that I had, and I would like to share that with you guys. All right, so that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.